and to also, in some ways, you have to be able to fit those policies within other climate grounds. And so basically what I think that it's coming down to is a way of messaging, and to be able to market these ideas or brand them, so that they can gain wider appeal. And I think that that's what you have to do, regardless. If California was its own country and wants to be a nation that sets ideals for the rest of the United States and the world, well, the same thing will still have to happen, right? Like the messaging, the ability to bridge the gap, and all those kinds of things have to take place, regardless of the nationhood or whatever of California. And so I think that if we look at it from the perspective of that's the starting point. Well, what's the end game? Like, how do we then engage the rest of the U.S.? How do we engage the rest of the world into not only adopting these policies, but also following through on them, right? Because I mean, like, the Paris Agreement, that was great. Everybody was really excited about it, but everybody was also really skeptical that it was actually going to come to pass. And then, when 45 steps into office and he's like, forget it, we're not going to participate in it. And that really kind of polarized everybody else. And hopefully it's a good thing in the sense that they're going to see it through. But a lot of the nations that had agreed to it weren't sure that they were going to be able to fulfill it. And so unless you're able to, enacting policy is one thing, but following through on it and engaging with it and selling it to the people and allowing people to see its merits and to be able to achieve it, that's a different comment altogether.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. And I want to mention one thing. I want to go back to what you were saying about Jerry Brown. And yeah, a lot of people don't like him. He catches a lot of flack for a lot of things. I just want to mention a couple of really great things he's done for California is to leave us with a financial surplus as opposed to a deficit that was left by the previous governor. And that will leave us set up to continue to protect California's needy residents and to implement welfare programs and keep welfare programs running for them when they need them. And it will. He has also done a great job of creating a safe space for immigrants and sanctuary state for immigrants. So those are a couple things that I really want him to get due credit or for which I want him to get due credit. Excuse me, I'm trying to use good syntax, but I'm thinking while I'm speaking here. So yeah, these are things these are ways in which we've set a really great example for the rest of the world as Californians. We've set a great example of wanting to use clean energy, working towards it, and working our way away from dirty energy and protecting the environment, and in doing so, joining up with the Paris Accord, signing the Paris Agreement, and California, it seems to me to have its heart set on being a beacon of hope and a really fabulous example, a shining example to the rest of the world in terms of progressiveness and progressive thinking, which I hate to use that term because it's another label, and some people are going to be put off by it. But to me, it just means thinking about the future in new ways that are going to actually mean that we will, in fact, have a future. We will not, it means that we will not be destroying ourselves by destroying the environment, because if we destroy our environment, that means we won't have clean air and water to drink. John, why don't you take over from there?
I think that giving credit where credit is due is really important, and far too many people are very polarized in their thinking, and we've been talking about that a little. That way of thinking is very institutionalized. Our institutions, our educational system, our religious system, our prison system, all of these things cater to this dualism. It's red or blue. It's pink for girls and blue for boys. It's you're either a Dodgers fan or a Giants fan. Like this dualism infects so much of our thinking that it's essential to get away from it. And just as you said with where Governor Brown deserves kudos, he also to be held accountable for being a hypocrite and for allowing fracking and for giving permits for new extraction and drilling to oil companies and doing things that are not in the best interest of Californians. And it's unfortunate that so many people are either completely for or completely against something. Speaking back in terms of Bernie Sanders, many of his supporters are completely brainwashed into thinking that he's this infallible person, and any criticism that you have of him, elicits a response that's really negative. So you just have to. We have to nurture systems that encourage people to have more productive conversations about what's happening in our world. On the 20th, in 4 days, there's a sit-in in Sacramento to end climate cowardice. And it's specifically focused on Governor Brown. We, the concerned people who don't want to see oil drilling and fracking in our state, have done everything possible through legal channels to put an end to these things, and have constantly been shut down or ignored. And so this sit-in is an opportunity for people to actually make their voices heard by using civil disobedience.
Excuse me, John, is there an invitation to that sit-in on Facebook or on social media anywhere?
There is. It's brownslastchance.org.
Okay, good. Say it again.
brownslastchance.org.
Okay, folks, go look for that invitation. Check out the event. It's a sit-in, and it's geared for people who want to protect our environment. That's it in a nutshell. And you can listen to the show again, hear a little bit about it again from John in his own words. We're going to go back to Justin now. Justin, do you happen to know of any similar events, or do you have any comment on Governor Brown and how he's been running California?
I don't to the former, but to the latter, I think that generally speaking, Governor Brown has been, I think that he's been good for the state. I think that you raised a lot of the valid points of what he's done. And I think that, looking to the future, we're going to have probably Gavin Newsom, who's going to continue on a lot of those issues. So I think that, To that point, though, I think that Gavin Newsom is going to be more of the same, right? Like he's I don't think that he's going to be vastly different from the things that Governor Brown has done to date. And so, to that point, I think that these kind of concepts, the ones that we're talking about today with the CalCon and the Yes California and all these different kinds of things, like these are. I think that they're great initiatives. I think they're good for generating the conversation. The hope that I have is that it's starting other conversations as well. Like I think that more than anything else, we need to hear more voices. We need to hear more people about what they want to have happen with our state and with our country. And that's ultimately what it's going to come down to, is that if we're talking about how to make people's voices heard and talking about the way that they vote and all this kind of stuff, well, we need to engage with them to hear what it is that they want to have happen with the state of California. And I think too that like it's really great to think about what could happen and the possibility of California seceding and all these kinds of things. But we live in the here and now, and I think that there are some things that we can do to kind of move that needle and to generate more of an idea of what people are willing to do to make a difference and make an impact today. And I think that, ultimately, without that as a starting point, then we can plan for an infinite amount of different kinds of things, but nothing is going to come to fruition.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point, folks. The question is, what can you do and what are you willing to do for your country or for your budding nation if you're living here in the state of California, which I see as being a budding nation. And my other thought on Gavin Newsom, folks, this may be a little polarizing and judgmental, but I have heard that he stepped out on his wife, and to me, that is not an example that I want to hold up for my son. And he would be setting an example as a person in a position of leadership, and that's not leadership to me, stepping out on your wife or lying about your golf score or lying to your base or talking about grabbing pussies. I hate to say that on the air. I'm terribly sorry. It's a horrible thing to say, and it came out of the mouth of our president. And I know where we are now. And I know that that's not what we started out to talk about today. So I'm going to pull back away from that now and talk about what can we do and what are we willing to do in order to not only protect California, but to advance California's agendas in terms of being sort of the superhero of the known world in the way of being the wonderful example that we have been and that we can continue to be, because California has always made me proud. Thank you, California. Yes, I believe in you. So take that in, and John, in what other ways has California been a wonderful example to the rest of the world, and how can we go on doing that? And you've got like 5 minutes to talk about that.
No pressure. There's lots of ways that Californians have promoted some of the most progressive legislation that this country has seen. We're being held back in many ways from pursuing even more progressive agendas. Being a donor state doesn't help. Getting 30 cents on the dollar back from the money that we contribute to the Fed through federal programs. We're supplementing these states who are